So along the lines of going outside the law and maybe learning from outside the law along this, sort of thread we're talking about, let's talk about EO, or Entrepreneurs Organization. I know you're involved with that. There are lawyers that are involved in it, but it's a lot of non-lawyers. So tell me about your experience in that and what sorts of things have you learned from hanging out with non-lawyer business owners?
Yeah. So I was kicking and screaming to that organization because I did not see myself as an entrepreneur. Plus, when I was looking at all of them, I'm like, yeah, they're younger. I don't know, but this is law, right? Again, thinking I'm different. So it was really because of that friend, the one that took off all that time. There were systems, for example, I think I had in my mind, I want to be different than the law firm, big law firm. I'm not going to have any meetings. I'm not going to have all these stupid policies and stuff. It's all just going to be whatever, but it's through them and seeing their experiences and the way they share it. And none of it, it's not about networking in order to get business from each other. It's not that, sometimes that naturally happens. That's not the point. The point is that you have people that you can bounce ideas off. You can see their failures. Like everybody has failures. You can also see their successes.
Welcome to the Founding Partner Podcast. Join your host, Jonathan Hawkins, as we explore the fascinating stories of successful law firm founders. We'll uncover their beginnings, triumph over challenges, and practice growth. Whether you aspire to launch your own firm, have an entrepreneurial spirit, or are just curious about the legal business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Founding Partner Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Hawkins. This is a podcast where I get to interview founding attorneys and hear about their journeys and the cool stuff that they're doing. And today's guest is Bonnie Richardson. She is the co-founder, we'll find out, Allegiant Law, which is, I'll call it a plaintiff-oriented firm in Portland, Oregon. But she has some nuance there, so I'll let her explain the areas that she practices in. So Bonnie, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your firm and sort of the things you cover.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on here. I was just telling you, this is the first podcast for me. So welcome, or hello, podcast world. So my firm is Allegiant Law. We named after a dead white person, just saying. And we're in Portland, Oregon. So this is, it's an interesting firm that we have here. It's pretty much all plaintiff side, like you were saying, really leaning heavily into that. But a little bit, it's kind of an interesting setup because we do take cases that are, not maybe traditionally one side or the other, but just really challenging, interesting, good, justice-oriented type cases. So we're kind of open to a lot of different stuff.
Well, that was one thing that struck me when we first met, that you do a lot of different things. I sort of got the impression of if it was an interesting case for an interesting cause, you're like, hey, we'll take it. How do you decide what cases you're going to take and which ones you're not going to take?
It's always a good question because it's very important, I think, as we go to a lot of CLEs and we learn about all of this, that you got to have good opportunities where you are being careful about who you choose as your client, and how you handle the client. So with that said, I think it sort of started off, frankly, with leaving a big firm and just kind of taking whatever conflicts there were, I don't know if you've seen that, Jonathan, with a lot of different people of, we'll just take the conflicts from the big firm. And that seems to set us off on our way. And so we sort of followed that to begin with, not knowing really what we were going to get. And then over time, and so that was 21 years ago. So over time, it was like, okay, now we got to be intentional. I kind of wish I had read your book back then. Just put that up there.
Nice plug. I like it. Thank you.
Well, really, it's a great book. I was like, whoa, yeah. There's some things in there that I thought, wow, this is very validating. And then some other things I thought, man, boy, did I wish I had that from before. So, you can kind of see how these things go. And especially if you've talked with a lot of people and you've represented or counseled a lot of different law firms. It's interesting how you try to control how you evolve, but you sort of fall into things. And then I think you try to pivot and control that a little more. So our firm, it's a plaintiff-centered firm representing people, but a lot of times we represent businesses too, because businesses can be harmed as well. And it's kind of like, does it fit within our values? And frankly, I think one of the things that I do, I don't know if it's something you would advise to do, but it's something that we've done and has served us well, is I try to think about what is the future and what's going to be sort of that next thing that I want to do. Like what's going to be something that's going to be lucrative, right? I mean, we're not a nonprofit. We want to make sure that we make money for all the people here. I always think about, I don't just support my family, I support this entire family of, how many of us are here? 16 other people here. So, and their families, it's a big burden, right? So, how do I support them with the future? What's something on the horizon? So that's kind of how I've looked at, all right, well, how are we going to do that? And does it align with our values? So,
well, I think that's really smart. That's a smart approach.
Yeah.
Looking sort of what's the next wave of, zigging while people are zagging. So then you're set up for when it comes, right?
Yeah. And, having gone through that first massive economic downturn in 2007, 8, and seeing a lot of firms sort of struggle with that and learning from that all the way to COVID, right? And, a lot of things that come out of left field that you don't know. There's going to be some stuff that might not even be affecting the nation that could come out and harm you. Maybe some regulation that gets passed that really destroys your whole entire business plan. So kind of coming up with backup for that. So, it's now evolved to the point where it's like, no, I mean, this is something that I've always wanted to do. And I'm sort of leaning into of just really representing, I kind of like to say like the right side of things, and is it an interesting case? Is there a justice component to it? Is there something new and novel that maybe some other lawyers just find it really difficult to do that we can maybe turn it around to something else? So right now it's like our big push recently is for plaintiff's medical malpractice, just because I see a big hole in that in the future. And right now is the time I think that these cases are really doing quite well with people, that really resonates with them about medical harm. I think they're challenging. So it kind of fits all of the things that we want to do. So that's our current really big push. But I think what you found interesting too, which I think a lot of people like to ask me about and makes lawyers very, very nervous, but the general public love it when I say it. And that is that, I mean, this firm was built on and still is on our being hired to take on cases for legal malpractice against lawyers and law firms on behalf of clients. It's a huge part of what we do. And it's something that I just sort of fell into.
Well, we're going to dive into that, but you've touched on a few things here. And so I want to go back, and talk about sort of how you ended up in Portland. And so it's a pretty interesting and circuitous a little bit type journey. And so let's go back. So you grew up in Oklahoma. There's nobody in your family that is a lawyer, but you grew up, small town, we'll call it that, right? So take me back to Oklahoma. What was that like growing up there and then becoming a lawyer there?
Yeah. Well, do you hear my accent at all, Jonathan?
No, but do you hear mine?
I do. I know immediately. Yeah. You can, those of us that are sort of from the South, is Oklahoma from the South? I mean,
I don't think that's the South. That's not the South.
Yeah, it's not really the South like, where you are, right? Atlanta, that's the South. But people get kind of, like, I know the difference between the Oklahoma, Texas, your South. Yeah, it's very different than like, interesting. We won't go into that whole culture thing. My parents aren't from there, so they moved there. I think that's my explanation of why I don't have an accent as much. Sometimes it does come out around my friends, but yeah. So Oklahoma. Yeah, my parents went there. So my mother's Japanese. She immigrated here from Japan, married a Navy guy, my dad. He was there during Vietnam War in the military. And they're kind of a success story because they're still together. I moved them out here after my third child was born in 2008. And they're here, still a part of my life every day. Very, very, very grateful to them. And, their story is actually far more interesting than mine. But so when they moved to Oklahoma, which is very challenging, I will say, for them, although they may not say it, very different time period in the 70s and 80s with basically a mixed race couple. They had 3 children. I was the oldest. And I grew up there, not really fitting in. So kind of always, I guess, a misfit. But I stayed in Oklahoma. I went to undergrad. I went to law school there. I was very lucky to get scholarships even in law school. And I think I was just sort of a homebody, wanted to be close to my parents. But the whole time that I'm there, I'm just feeling like there's got to be somewhere else that I can go, but nobody ever escapes this place. So I just always wanted to leave and go somewhere else. And the only time that I felt I could do it was after I graduated from law school, which is what I did. I took off to anywhere but Oklahoma, anywhere. I was going to either on one coast or the other. And we just kind of settled on Portland, Oregon.
So how did you choose Portland? You didn't know anybody there, right? You went there. Well, you didn't know any lawyers for sure. I think you said, but
yeah. I mean, I didn't know any lawyers at all, even going into law school. So I'm not coming from a connected family in any way, or I guess maybe a family that had criminal troubles, or, we had no contact with lawyers. And, in Portland, my husband's family had connections with people who lived here. That's a whole nother story. And that's how we first heard about it. So that's why we kind of decided to check it out. And when we came out here, we fell in love and still are in love with it. It's the most amazing city. So everybody out there, Portland, it's amazing. It's so beautiful. The downtown has been cleaned up. It's an incredible place to live.
Well, I was preparing for this, and I think it's on your website. I think it's the river with the bridges. Is that on your website? It looks amazing. Looks amazing.
Yeah. It's right outside the window.
I was looking at that thinking, I'm moving to Portland. So.
It is. I mean, I have to come over one of those bridges that was built in the 1800s every day. And I get to see bald eagles and, osprey in the summer mostly. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, it's an incredible place. Mountains and ocean. Yeah. So that's really what drew us. But I knew nobody out here at all in the legal field, just some relatives of my husband's. So that was nice.
So how did you break in? You didn't know any lawyers. You weren't from there. You didn't go to law school there. You moved there really fresh. How did you break into the legal scene?
Well, so in law school, I did pretty well in law school. I was very connected with the dean and the other professors. I still keep up with most of the professors too, which is very interesting. And the dean was for a long time in private practice and had just become the dean like in the last, couple of years, or last year, I think, of my law school. So I went to him and I just said, do you know anybody in Oregon that I could contact? He was part of that American College of Trial Lawyers. I don't know if you heard of that. It's kind of a club. Used to not have any women in it from Oregon until recently. But anyway, he gave me the name of 5 people. And so when I arrived, I had to take the bar again, I took the bar in Oklahoma, started practicing there, immediately moved, came here 1998, and he gave me the name of, I think it was 5 people. And so I just started, back in the day where you go and you meet with them, call them up, can I come meet with you? And quickly realizing, oh shit, because they were really too high up. It was a federal judge, the president of the University of Oregon, a very prominent female attorney who was actually undergoing cancer. I never met her. She eventually passed away. And I think it was like another federal judge. I think he had just become a federal judge. So it wasn't very lucrative at the beginning. Yeah. But, going and meeting with each one of those, there was some kind of impression that they had. And then keeping up with them, right? So I had my little list of 5 people. And I would take my little list of 5 people and keep up with them. Email wasn't really the way that these people kept up. I mean, I was really into email, but they weren't. So I would write them a note, I just want to let you know that I'm now working at a temp agency, and I'm really enjoying Portland. I'm meeting all these people and, just kind of telling them and not really hearing anything back. But I think it created some kind of seed in their mind. I will say that for the 2 that were the federal judges, I had to appear in front of them later, or when they were talking to other people, they would just say, I know that I heard like, oh yeah, with this person, this new attorney just seems really, like a good attorney. And probably just because I was making those connections, like intentional connections. And then it really helped when I would go appear in front of them many years later. So, and then that list, I would just ask them for other people, and it just kept growing and growing and just applying, everywhere that I could. And I will say that it felt at the very beginning Like I was never going to make it. I was very impatient. Like I just want to get there. And then I'm looking at my law school classmates, some of them who stayed back, and they're buying new cars, they're buying their house, they've got like new opportunities for work. And I'm like, I cannot believe that I just did this. I just gave up. Like I had this great job. I just left that job, all the connections that I had built, but it was just a matter of time, just being patient and working at it. I mean, working on that list until it grew to like 2 pages and finally I had to get rid of it. But it really did grow, and now I've become a very well-known attorney here. I can't remember when that happened. I don't really count the years, but it's just all of a sudden where you think, oh, wow, I guess I am prominent. Whatever that means. Prominent.
Well, I'll tell you, that approach of attacking the list, I'll call it attacking the list, or just the in-person, I did that very early in my career, to meet people and to try to just lay the seeds to build business later. And not many people doing it. Not many people do that. Maybe they're comfortable. Maybe they don't want to get out. They're busy. Whatever the excuse is, they're behind their desk. They're not really getting out. And, I tell people, younger lawyers, do it. And I say it's like dating sort of too. You're going to kiss a lot of frogs. I remember some of these lunches and breakfasts where the second I sat down, I was thinking, how do I get out of here? But you had to force yourself through it and get to the other side and figure out every little trick in the book to keep the conversation going. And the reps. And again, and I was very impatient as well, but I just kept going and going and going. And it's still, those reps and those meetings, I still get value out of that today, just friends and all the stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think maybe one thing, I remember saying this to myself, and this helps with the people who are new into the practice and trying to break in. It was so defeating, right? It's like you get a rejection letter, or maybe somebody doesn't call back, or it's a dud or whatever. So every day I would just say to myself, okay, it's a new day, and I'm going to make one reach out, right? Just one. Like, because there were some days it was just like, oh God, I don't even want to anymore. But if I just did one thing today, I'm going to do it because it's a new day. I would just tell myself that over and over. Yeah. And eventually, it becomes almost too much now. Now I get too many calls, So.
Hey, it worked. Okay.
It worked.
So what year did you move to Portland?
1988.
Okay. 1988. So you worked your list, you found a job. What kind of job? Was it a big firm, mid-sized firm? Small firm?
Yeah. Okay, so in Oklahoma, I was at a big firm. Thought, oh my God, I do not want to be part of. I know it's sort of like this must be bad. So I set my sights on trying to stay away from a big firm, going to a mid-sized firm. I originally really wanted to work for a plaintiff's lawyer. That's what I originally thought I wanted to do right out of law school, but I had some pretty bad experiences in meeting some of these people. Probably met the wrong people now that I look back on it, and they just made this impression on me of just like, oh my God, I don't want to be this person. So I feel like, God, I wish I had somebody else who was a mentor, who was in that space of, doing justice related work, so that it wouldn't be overshadowed by some of the negative experiences, right? So at the time, I remember reaching out to some of the plaintiffs' firms. It's just really hard to break into when you're brand new. And so I sought out the midsize. And, I had a lot of student debt too, both undergraduate and law school. So for me, I needed to find a job that was going to be able to pay those debts down and kind of get myself going on this career. So midsize firm it was. Yeah. Not a lot different, I have to say. I feel like, you know what, Jonathan, I don't know if you've heard this, the big firms, just going to say it. It's like, everybody's like, oh, big law, It's so, people think, when I hear, corporate law, I'm like, corporate law, like you represent businesses, corporations. I don't know, sit behind a desk and read contracts. Okay, there's nothing sexy about corporate law. I'm sorry. But when I think about the big firms, it's like a bunch of little firms in the big firm. You have all these little sections and little groups, and sometimes they're defined and you're trying to navigate it. Sometimes they're not defined, and it's just like trying to figure out the politics behind all of it. It's basically just a bunch of small little firms all put together in one. And the mid-sized firm is just like a bigger, small firm, right? So, yeah.
And so you did the big firm, then you did sort of the middle firm, and then at some point you said, all right, I'm doing my own firm, or I'm going to try it on my own. So tell me about what led up to that and then what pushed you into it.
Yeah. Well, so I went back to the big firm after the mid-sized firm, hoping that I would get a lot more experience. That's really what I was looking for, was I want to get hands-on experience doing litigation. You don't get a whole lot of hands-on experience actually in the big firm. But what did I know? I was just like, it's like, I want to be around it. Maybe I can prove myself and sort of, get into this. So, actually was lots of experiences there, way too many stories. So I won't go into those. I will say that I did develop, which I did not know at the time. I really had no idea I was doing this at the time at the big firm. There is a group of women who are kind of all around my category of associates. And at the time, I felt like we had nothing in common and very competitive, right? Like ruthlessly competitive. And some of them I liked and some I didn't. But later, Jonathan, maintaining those relationships despite the difficulties in doing it, repairing bridges, not burning it down, those women I have kept up with all these years later, and some of them I'm very, very close to and we've referred stuff back and forth to each other. It's an amazing relationship. Some of them I never thought I would ever be friends with, but it just took me getting away from that competitive environment. But pretty much all of them I have maintained an amazing relationship with. So I think you talk about it in your book, how important it is to don't burn those bridges, right? Like, don't burn those bridges when you leave. So anyway, I think being in the big firm for me, I think deep down I always knew, because my dad was a veterinarian. He was like a small town vet, solo veterinarian. We helped him start his little clinic, and not a very good business person, but just him owning his own business and me sort of working there with him, trying to figure out how to, we're kind of constantly at tension with each other. And I always think back, gosh, I could have really made that business better, but whatever. I think it always had it in me that I needed to have my own business. And I knew that kind of from the beginning, but I wasn't sure how to do it. When I was in the last big firm, I was trying really hard to make these changes within the firm, and it just weren't happening quick enough. And there were things that were so frustrating to me. Like, I'm like, why would you not give us 2 monitors to review documents all day long? So that's what we do here, right? This is 2001? I'm like, we need these 2 monitors because we're looking at documents. You have to go through this process. And I just thought, okay, this is it. I need to do it. So I just started planning. It wasn't like it just happened suddenly. I was really trying to be intentional about it. I was just trying to figure out how to do it when I felt like I didn't have an ability to get cases. Because when you're in the big firm, you're at the whim of these other lawyers who are handing you the work, right? And the secret to that, to me, the secret to that is, are they going to give you the good work or the bad work? And how do you kind of get in with the client? And is that the client that you really want? Which is going to be great for the big firm, but doesn't necessarily translate to maybe a smaller firm. And so, I was trying to figure out, how is any client going to come to me?
So true. It is. It's a challenge to develop work in the big firm. Because especially when you're a young lawyer, maybe your uncle is the CEO of Coca-Cola. But other than that, you're going to get some small little case that the whole value of the case is probably lower than the minimum retainer that the firm requires. There may be a conflict, all the stuff. They're like, nope, you can't do it. So it's hard. It's hard to develop work. So I assume when you left, you probably didn't have any clients that came with you, or did you?
No, so I was a little tiny. Most of the clients that I had to work on were really rather difficult type people. And so I was pretty good at handling those. So, and I kind of found my little niche and doing this mortgage stuff and doing these arbitrations and securities. I was just taking whatever I could to, be able to bill that. I was the second highest biller when I left, which is kind of astonishing to me.
I don't even want to ask how many. hours. I don't even want to know.
Well, there was always somebody a little crazier, right? But it was interesting. I mean, our minimum was 1850. So, but I mean, there was a time when I billed over 2,000. It was easy to do when you just devoted your entire days and nights, on these big like environmental coverage cases. You're staring at screens all day. And, but no, I think that was I knew I needed to get clients and I just didn't know how I was going to do it. And that's what held me back, I think, just that fear, right? Like, how am I going to get it? And what happened was there was this lawyer in the law firm who was the big rainmaker. And he was very difficult, but he picked only like 2 people that he was nice to. And I was one of them. And I loved the work that he did. It was really big. Like he was getting stuff out of London. I didn't get to go with him to those, but I mean, and he was it just felt really good working for him. He was an excellent lawyer. And it felt good that like, oh, he didn't treat me like shit. He was actually everybody was very scared of him. He's terrified. And I wasn't. I don't know why I wasn't. I just wasn't. And he's one of those people, I think, who just, if he's like a dog, if he smells fear, he just kind of goes for them. And so he didn't smell fear in me. And so he just really, he saw me as somebody. And he saw this other associate, also another female associate, as like his too, that he would help to get to greatness. So I was just trying to figure out, like, how do I hook myself onto him? And I was really afraid to even mention anything to him, but I would sometimes ask him, like, hey, what's going on behind the scenes? And he'd kind of share a little bit. But one of the things that I did, which I've never told anybody about this, but it's interesting. There was one of those non-equity lawyers, I don't have to explain for people on the podcast who they are, but, trying to get promoted to equity, but never making it because he didn't have $1 million book. He had like a bunch of little tiny clients. And he was somebody that a lot of people didn't talk with. So I, didn't do anything in the area that I did, but I'd go down to that floor and I'd just be like, hey, tell me what you do. And then I'm like, what do you get? What is it that the firm looks at? So he'd share with me all that. He'd show me the spreadsheets. And I was like, oh yes, yeah. It was interesting how they only wanted you to see this one piece, right? So I was trying to understand what that was. And they showed us more than other law firms. But it was really like, how many hours are you doing and what's your profitability margin? So when I started seeing like what other people did and how they got the work and how they were splitting it, that really, I was like, oh. And it was with him that I said, you can make a lot more money if you had your own firm. And so I was starting to try to figure out how to do that, thinking that person would be a good person, because I didn't have the clients that were coming to me. I mean, it was all just whoever would give me the clients that I would go work on. So I was actually trying to figure out how to make that work. But what happened was that one lawyer, his name's John, St. John, he had a big blow up. He had made plenty of money. He didn't like certain people that were in the Seattle office or something. And so he's just like, I'm just going to leave. I was like, right now? And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to leave and I don't need to work anymore. I'm just going to do whatever I want. George and I are going to leave. George was a senior attorney there. He's kind of put out to pasture. He's like, he's smart. We'll just do our own thing. And that's really when I was like, well, I want to go. I want to go with you. And they're like, you do? And so that's really how it evolved. I wish I could say that, yeah, I was the one that I just went out, I filed this, No, I was too scared to do it on my own. I needed a little more. And remember, at that time I had 2 children. I just was pregnant when he told me that with my second child. I'm the breadwinner in my family. At that firm at the time, there were no female attorneys who had children. And there was nobody that I could look up to. Pretty much everybody was sort of giving me, even one person said it, but most of the time it's like, you cannot make it. You cannot be successful if you are a mom and have children as a lawyer. That was just kind of the atmosphere. So, and I just thought, no, I refuse. Sometimes I wondered whether or not I would be able to, but I refused to believe that. And this particular partner could really not care at all. He did not care whether or not I had children and was a woman. In fact, he saw that women had more power in his mind than men, which was kind of strange for this older white guy, you know? And I owe a lot to him because he's the one that sort of elevated me to be able to take on some of those cases. So yeah, so they started that firm officially on April Fool's Day, 21 years ago.
Which is today,
really,
as we record.
Oh my God, it is today. Yeah. But I was still like at home with the baby. I just had a baby, right? Like 2 months old. So I was like, oh, okay, I got to get back. Then I went over when the baby was, I think, 3.5 months old.
Real quick, if you haven't gotten a copy yet, please check out my book, The Law Firm Life Cycle. It's written for law firm owners and those who plan to be owners. In the book, I discuss various issues that come up as a law firm progresses through the stages of its growth, from just before starting a firm to when it comes to an end. The Law Firm Life Cycle is available on Amazon. Now back to the show. So you joined them, it's around 2005, and then, of course, the world ended for the first time. Wouldn't be the last time, but it ended for the first time with the great financial crisis, 2007 and 8, 9, 10, or whatever. How was that in the aftermath?
Yeah, so starting that firm, it was like, okay, you know, it was interesting because they were very traditional lawyers who didn't really know how to run a firm. And they said, well, how about you just do it? Like, sure. So when I'm negotiating with them, I was like, okay, well, how much am I going to get paid? And like, I don't know, however much we have come in. I don't know what kind of cases we'll get, you know. And I had some clients that were willing to come over with me, but I didn't really like doing that work. But, yeah, it would work out. And they were like, well, you know, you have to start. You got to have like 3/4 of your pay from before, and then maybe, you know, you'll be able to earn it. We'll see. I was like, okay, fine, you know, but I want to be able to run everything. I'm like, sure. Okay. I better learn how to read a, you know, financial statement and trust account. So
You didn't know what you were asking for, did you?
yeah, well, I mean, a lot of mistakes starting out. But a lot of things that we did right too. Probably one of the best things is just one of my best friends was a managing partner of a mid-sized firm. I'm sorry, not a partner. She wasn't a partner. I always think of her as a lawyer. She was the manager. She was not a lawyer, but she ran the whole firm and did all the books and everything. So she's the one that said, let me tell you how it's done. So I think being able to consult with somebody like that who I trusted and could just give me the skinny was really great. Those first couple of years were actually better than what we projected. So it felt good. And then there were a couple of things that happened. Not knowing that financial crisis was coming. My husband was laid off. He's not a lawyer. He was in a different industry, but I could almost, you know, now when I look back, I was telling everybody that this was going to be happening because I was doing some of those mortgage fraud cases. And so I could see it all. But it's funny how I didn't really feel like my vision or intuition was valid. I don't know. And when I look back, every time it has been. So I think at that time was, we didn't really see it coming. And now I have my husband's laid off. I had another child in 2007, so third baby. And suddenly no job for my husband who had healthcare, you know. And I think I always go back and I'm like, did I think about that right? Yeah, that was the year that I made $12,500. That was my share of the profit. So
how did you survive? I mean, that's 3 kids, husband laid off. I mean,
yeah,
how'd you do it?
You got to have really good connections with lenders. You know, you need to be able to borrow money. I also had student loans, right? So, yeah. So it was like, okay, I think that there's got to be a way around this. And, you know, and at the time, I'm like, the nice thing about being a lawyer is that you can actually get in and do the work, which is what I think we should talk about here in a little bit, because it's actually not doing the work, as you again say in your, it's very true. Stop being a lawyer. Start thinking like a founder. Start being a business owner. I wish I had thought of that before. I mean, only in the last 6 years now is when I finally am like, yes, that is right. I need to get on with that. And it's changed everything for me. But back then it felt like, well, I could just do the work, you know, and try to figure it out. But really, I was trying to lean into what the vision was. So my vision of, all right, well, where's the work that's going to come? we could see everything happening, right? Things are falling out, financial crisis. My friends in the big firm are freaking out, people in-house. And then I saw this opportunity. So I was like, okay, well, wait a second. Really, that low income year was because we kind of grew a little too fast. And we were putting a lot of eggs in the basket on the plaintiff side with people that didn't really know how to do the plaintiff's work and didn't have a system in place for predicting. And so I think that's really when I say that amount, it's true, but I don't think it was because of the crisis. It was the beginning of the crisis. Like the real economic crisis happened in 2008. But you could see it coming, right? And I could already feel it with my husband being one of the first people laid off. And then the company that laid him off filed bankruptcy. So we see all this coming. And then I look over there and I think, all those companies and some of the clients I held on to, they're not going to want to pay the big firms. And as the businesses are shrinking, they're going to be looking at spending their money on going after money, right? And so litigation is going to start to go up, and commercial litigation. So what better way? We're right here. We can do that. So that's really, actually, because of the economic crisis, the next year I made a lot more money. So in 2008, I would say 2008, we were recovery. 2009, everybody else is failing. 2009 was one of the best years at the very beginning.
So let's dive into that a little bit more. So you see an opportunity. You're like, this is what we need to do. And for people out there, how do you seize the opportunity? It's one thing to say, yeah, I think that's an opportunity, but it's another to actually be able to capitalize on it. So what sorts of, I guess, techniques or strategies or whatever to say, okay, yeah, I think this is going to work. Now we got to go work to try to get that. What'd you do?
Okay. So on that one, so backing up a little bit, I saw an opportunity on another area. It's kind of a class action opportunity with some of this mortgage fraud stuff that I saw from doing work on the brokerage piece. And then getting away now, I didn't have the conflicts anymore. And I really saw an opportunity of, I think that the mortgage is going to be falling out if they keep all these practices up. This is our time. Let's get on the class action boat. And I started going through that. There were two new people who had joined us, and they just put a wet blanket on it. I listened to them. I think that was my biggest mistake. I was sitting there, they're like, no, you don't know what you're doing, oh, that's like, just naysayers, right? They had no business. They were in their 50s at the time. I remember that. And they had no vision. And all they did was not want to see me succeed, right? But I couldn't see it at the time. I just wish I had, but I did learn from it. So I just held back. And then I just saw it all happening. I thought, that was a missed opportunity. I just missed that opportunity. So then when the next one comes in, I had another idea again, same thing. So I got rid of them. See you later. Okay, so
that's one way to do it. I like it.
Yeah, that was the best thing they could ever. Very good breakup, by the way. Didn't burn any bridges. Hello out there. It was all fine. But didn't need to have that in the way anymore. Got rid of that. Restart the firm. John, my original mentor, is still with me. Like, whatever you want to do, what do I care? So I'm like, okay. So now, how do I seize on this opportunity? Sure, I don't mind people telling me like the critical parts. Listen to it, right? So we can learn. But listen to the reasons why. And are they really visionaries? Are they people who are being helpful? Or are they providing experiences? Forget about them. Who are the people that are going to be able to provide you with good critical feedback that you can be ready for, not just to put you down? Then look at, okay, how much am I going to invest in it? You have to invest in it. It takes money in order to do it, right? Is it going to be my physical labor? Sure. I might have to put some time into it, but what else can I do for it? So in this one, I recognize we're going to be having a lot of people who are not going to want to go to the firms. So I go to all the people that I know and have John go too. We're going to go to anybody at these firms and ask them, like, do you have any work? Do you have somebody, maybe one of these smaller cases or businesses? Happy to do it. Won't take all the work from it, right? Like we're only going to do the litigation piece. Start to look at doing the plaintiff malpractice. Frankly, I fell into the legal malpractice this way. Saw that as a huge opportunity because I saw where pretty much we could have a monopoly on the plaintiff side in the state of Oregon the way that it's set up. So taking that initiative to then spend the money on the website to make it so that you can encapsulate what that vision is, but then follow up with who are the people that I need to talk with so that I can be the one to accept those cases that maybe they don't want to take. So in that year it was like, great, set it up. And then all this work started coming in because they didn't want to go to the big firms. And litigation was just through the roof, right?
So it worked. It worked. So I want to fast forward a little bit. So the firm that you joined with those two guys, and eventually they sort of, I guess, retired or hung it up, and then you kept going, and then I think that is what is your firm now, what became Allegiant. And so I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned it a little bit, but the evolution from doing the work to becoming more of the leader and having to run a firm. Take me through that a little bit. How did you learn it? How have you learned it? How did you manage the step away? I think that's hard for a lot of folks, myself included. How did you manage it? Or have you managed it? Maybe a better word.
Still managing how to manage it. Yeah, it is. It's a constant struggle. It's my goal to get there. So I think the realization really came when it was, looking outside of law. So if I realize I just keep, kind of looking what's this law firm doing over here? What's this over here? I'm trying to set myself apart from them, right? So I'm like, okay, I can kind of set myself apart, but how do I really get inspiration from somebody else? So looking to other people who are not law firms and who have done very well with this and have succeeded, really kind of paying attention. Because what we do as lawyers is really no different than any other service, right? Like, why are we something so special? We're not that special. We're just a service provider, So what can I learn from others? So that is really what my journey started with. Right before COVID, it started descending down. COVID actually helped because it allowed me to kind of take a step back and think, right? The work stopped anyway. So, we were buckling down. But just taking a step back and using that time to think, like, now I had time to really plan everything out. And really the plan for me was, and kind of what helped me was a friend of mine who was in real estate, very, very successful at it. And she had told me, I just didn't go to work for a year. I was like, what do you mean you didn't go you didn't go to work at all? Going out and selling real estate? And no, I just didn't go. I just had other people handle it. I just put some systems in place and had people handle it. So I tried to buck again. Oh, I can't do that. People are not. And finally, I just came around, and that realization really was planted when I could think about it and I could really see. And I think there's a phrase that people use. I can't remember what you say in your book, but the one that I always think about is, you got to work on the business, not in the business. On the business, not in the business. So I started to do that. And the first thing was recognizing within myself. I thought I was really good at running meetings and being a leader, right? Yeah, I'm a good leader, but there are some aspects of the leadership that I'm not good at. Many, actually. And so really taking an internal, strong look at that. And there's lots of different ways that you can do it, but being true to yourself and realizing I am not good at running meetings. I am not good at executing on these big ideas that I have. I am also really don't like the internal conflict in dealing with people's emotions because they soak it all in, the negative stuff. So thinking about all of those things and how do I bring in somebody else and make it where it is an amazing thing that they can do that, and allowing them to do it fully. So, and one of them's not a lawyer, In fact, being a lawyer is probably your worst asset for running a business.
It might be.
It really is.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
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 So,
I am in the middle of dealing with these things too. I think everybody, I don't think it ever ends. It is my conclusion. It just changes. Once you hit, you take care of one thing, then it's going to be something new. But it's always a mindset shift. Only I can do this, or or I have to be involved in this, or whatever it is. you got to get past that. And then when you do, sort of like your friend who just said, I just left for a year, then you're like, wow, it actually did work. So, but leaving for a year or even leaving for a month, that would be really difficult for me right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're probably a control person, aren't you?
Maybe a little. It depends.
Little. Yeah. We often have the same characteristics, right? The people who are true founders and visionaries. I mean, that's the other thing is feeling very alone because, very few people are like this. And usually we're in these positions. So being able to talk with other people too who are visionaries and recognizing it helps. But it is, I mean, when you really look at the business of law and how to make it done, here's part of my problem now. Yeah. I'm definitely trying to shove all this off on people, right? Like we have people who are way better than me. So I surround myself with people who are better than me at things. They may not be able to be, like I'm kind of a Jane of all trades, right? Like I can do like lots of different things, but there are people who can do things far better than I can and are exceeding at it. Maybe they can't do like every single thing or certain things, but they're really good at it. So I surround myself with people who are smarter than me. Never somebody who's not as smart. I mean, just, they are way better. And then what I do is I tell them I would like my ultimate dream is when the clients come in, we have a very client-centered frame. I want the clients taken care of their number one thing. But my dream is that they forget about me. They don't even remember that I was there. I mean, maybe I'm sort of in the background, but they just recognize, oh, wow, this is such an amazing, I'm being taken care of by this whole team. This is great. That's what my dream and goal is. So how do I get there? The problem is that right now clients, they tell you, they're like, well, I want you're going to be the one, right? You're going to be the one that's going to be at that mediation and do this and that. And so that's probably one of the hardest.
So let me ask you,
I want to be there.
Let me ask you about that because in a previous conversation we had, you mentioned that you're in the news a lot out there for a variety of things or a variety of reasons. And so you're the founder, you're the face of the firm, you're out there on the news, people see you and they're like, I want you. How do you balance that? And how would a founder out there who is the face of the firm, any ideas or recommendations on how do you balance that?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's all about, and that's why we changed the name of the firm too, right? I think, again, you talk about this in your book. It's so validating what you write in your book. It's like, it's not about the culture of the personality. It's not the cult of personality. It's the culture. It's the firm, right? Like, how do you get away from it being totally reliant on the one person? And that's where, that's really flattering and everything. But no, I want to make myself, I'm going to make this even better for me and for everyone else, but I'm going to turn out really great for this too. So how do I do that? Yeah, I actually really enjoy it. Like, I like doing this. I love, talking with journalists. I love being on the face of things. I love performing, it's just in my nature. I enjoy that. When the clients come in and they're just like, yeah, we really want that, I introduce them to the firm. I always, like even this last meeting I had, a whole room full of people. I'm like, look, here I am. We're going to talk about whatever you want. I love strategy, but I work with a team. So I got an associate. I probably have a double partner, depending on the case. You have a paralegal, an assistant. I'll have AI, that's really going to make things inefficient. But it's not, that's how I work. So I'm just honest about it. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm going to be the one. They need to know at the beginning. And most of the time they're like, okay, and maybe some people it's not going to be a good fit because they think, oh, they just need that one person. Then it's just not a good fit. You have to say no to that. But that's to me how I'm working to change it, Jonathan. I don't know. Let's see. Let's just go back to this and see if it works.
Okay.
I want to know.
So along the lines of going outside the law and maybe learning from outside the law along this, sort of thread we're talking about, let's talk about EO or Entrepreneurs Organization. I know you're involved with that. There are lawyers that are involved in it, but it's a lot of non-lawyers. So tell me about your experience in that and what sorts of things have you learned from hanging out with non-lawyer business owners?
Yeah. So I was dragged kicking and screaming into that organization because I did not see myself as an entrepreneur. Plus, when I was looking at all of them, I'm like, yeah, they're younger. I don't know, what? This is law, right? Again, thinking I'm different. So it was really because of that friend, the one that took off all that time. You know, I mean, it's because of her that she was a president. So she's like, no, you got to check this out. So I kind of went in reluctantly. And now I have made new friends. I'm now on the board. It's an entrepreneur organization. It's, to me, probably been one of the life-changing things for the firm. There were systems, for example, I think I had in my mind, I want to be different than the law firm, big law firm. I'm not going to have any meetings. I'm not going to have all these stupid policies and stuff. It's all just going to be whatever, but it's through them and seeing their experiences and the way they share it. And none of it, it's not about networking in order to get business from each other. It's not that, sometimes that naturally happens. That's not the point. The point is that you have people that you can bounce ideas off. You can see their failures. Like everybody has failures. You can also see their successes. And then they also bring in lots of really great learning. So, so we see things that are really business oriented and not just for law. Very few lawyers are actually part of this group in comparison. Lots and lots of IT people. And some of my very close friends now are from this group. So, but I think it's because it's so alone sometimes when you're thinking about all the stuff that you want to do, to be around other people that are similar to you, not all the time, but once a month or, where you're just like, okay, I'm going to shut up now. Cause you can tell, here I am. I've been talking this whole time, When I go to these meetings with my EO, they're a very small group of people. We have very strict rules. I can't say anything. I have to just wait until they do. And I learn so much more that way, So anyway, it's been really, I would say maybe it hasn't, changed my life, and then it changed the business, it totally affected my life. I can take vacations. I can feel comfortable. I feel good about the future. We have a system that we put into place. We have policies now. I'm in meetings a lot, and I actually enjoy them because I'm not running them. It's totally, completely changed starting in 2020, and we're continuing this trajectory. So we'll see where it goes.
Well, I think that's great, and I agree with you. I think it's good to be in groups with other lawyer leaders to hear what's going on in your business, but I think getting outside the law, huge. There's so many different ways that are more advanced, way more advanced. The law is just so slow. Everybody's talking about law and AI and all this stuff now. Well, everybody else has been in it for a while, right? We are the last ones. Yeah. And
yes.
Getting out there, huge. So
yeah. And getting away from naysayers, right? Because there's so much part of tradition. Yeah, but also having the connections, like you were just saying, you want to have your other lawyers. So I have a group that I formed a long time ago. It's all female women business law managers, owners, and they're very important to me too. That was started way long before this. It was, it's a very lonely thing. We didn't talk about that a lot, but being a woman and starting a business, especially in law with such traditions, is extremely challenging, Jonathan. That's a whole nother podcast for you that you can talk with them. It is, like you were saying, going out and having these lunches with people. It's a different thing when you're a woman going with a man to a lunch. It just a very different dynamic and things that you have to look out for, and a lot of things that hold back, a lot of power dynamics. But anyway, so yes, really important also to have that group of lawyer friends that I can rely on.
Okay, so you just gave me a really good idea. I'm going to pitch it to you and see what you think. We need to do an episode that's basically a panel. I get to be the interviewer. I'll be the only guy because I have to be there. But it'll be a panel of women law firm owners. You'll be one of them. And we'll get 3, so it's not too overwhelming. And then we'll spend an hour and a half talking about all the challenges and all these things. What do you think?
I think that's great.
Would you do it?
I think
you in?
I would totally do it. The key is that if we're going to talk about it, let's be real and raw. And at the point in our careers where we don't really give a shit anymore, I think that's the problem. Like all the things that I couldn't say before, I can now say and share and show. Yeah, this is what happened and still is happening. I think that would be fabulous. Yes.
So I think it'd be good for, I think a lot of women would say, yeah, that happened to me, that happened to me. And it'd be good for them to see others that have gone on the path, but it'd probably also be good for a lot of these male lawyers to hear it too, right?
It'd be good for men. I mean, one example is my male partner in Seattle, one of my very best friends. I've known him since we were teenagers. I mentioned something, like, oh yeah, secretary always was really hard for me, and he's like, what? He had no idea. And it's something common that has been shared with many women. And I realized, and he was so grateful to hear about that. And I thought, wow, we just hadn't really talked about it. He learned so much just from me saying that. So, yeah.
So a recent guest, I think her episode dropped, 2-3 weeks ago as of today, Lori Webb Daniels. She's an appellate lawyer here in Atlanta, and her dad was a prominent trial lawyer. She tells a story on her episode where he basically said, don't go to law school. You should be a paralegal. And of course, she said, all right, I'm going to law school now. And then fast forward, and she got to argue in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. And at that, he carried her briefcase for her. He was basically her paralegal for that argument. So came full circle. Oh. Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, I'll have to watch that. Yeah. Yeah. I think, it's an interesting world for sure.
So we've been going at it for a while. I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to wrap up and, ask a question I like to ask all the founders is, what advice would you have for somebody just starting out, maybe thinking about it, or a few years in, to set their firm up, grow it the right way, do it the way they want to do it versus what the naysayers say they can or can't do? What advice do you have?
Yeah, I would say if you're thinking about it and you want to start a firm, just gather up all the resources that are already available, right? Like there's books and whatever, and the bar will often have forms and things to think about. So you can kind of gather all that so you have it. And then I think one of the most important things is to really do a self-reflection, whether through some kind of personality or through consultant or something where you can actually really allow yourself to reflect the kind of person that you are as far as an owner, a manager, a leader, and then build around that, right? Build around it with where are your weaknesses? Strengths test, right? Here's your strengths, where are your weaknesses? How do you build around that? So it's one thing if you're going to be solo. If you're going to have a firm, it's a very different one. So how do you then build to your strengths and weaknesses early on? To me, I think that's the thing that people should focus on first so that they can then build out a plan. But building out the plan is key. I honestly didn't do that. It's one of those where I'm like, God dang it, I wish I would have done that. And maybe you hire a consultant to help you do it. That probably would have broken through a lot, instead of just trying to do it on your own. It's worth it. Remember, it's an investment. So to me, I think some people balk at, you're going to spend $5,000 to hire a consultant to start a firm. That's nothing. Spend $20,000. Put an investment in so that it is the right person, if that's what you need, to figure out where your strengths and weaknesses are, what your plan is for the next 10 years, and then work backwards from there. That's what I would do if I could do it all over again.
I agree. A plan. You got to have a plan. You can always tweak the plan, but you got to have a plan to start. You got to have a direction you're going in.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a life changer. Not a life changer, a game changer. For sure.
So Bonnie, this has been great. Thanks for coming on. We didn't even get through. We may have gotten through a third of the things I wanted to get through. So maybe next time.
Because I was talking.
Well, next time we'll go through the rest. You have some good stories that we didn't get to at all. So for anybody out there that wants to get in touch with you, maybe they have a case in Oregon, they need an attorney. What's the best way to find you?
Yeah. Well, the best way to find me is probably through our website, allegiantlaw.com, and just reach out, email me. I'm more than happy to, or even just want to talk about the business of law. I love it. But that is the best way to reach me, is through email. You can call too. It all goes to the same thing. So, yeah, Yes.
Well, some people are brave and give their cell phone number out. I won't ask you for that, but
We're setting up a thing where we have like a special number that goes to the cell phone. We haven't done that yet, but no.
I don't give my cell phone number out. I just very few people. I get enough spam already. I need to get more.
Yeah. No, it's very true. Yeah, no, but I mean, we're recruiting. Of course, we're always looking for people who want to join a firm that's kind of unique and different, that wants to be justice oriented on the plaintiff side, always looking for good fit. Misfits are a good fit often with our firm. So, yeah.
You heard it here. If you're in Oregon looking to move to Oregon, give Bonnie a call. All right. Well, thanks.
Well, thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Founding Partner Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on the latest episodes. You can also connect with Jonathan on LinkedIn and check out the show notes with links to resources mentioned throughout our discussion by visiting www.lawfirmgc.com. We'll see you next time for more origin stories and insights from successful law firm founders.